Hello and welcome to the theElpyDimension. I am your guide, Elpy. Just a minute, please. It's cold in the basement, so I zipped up my fleece all the way, and then I forgot that when I talk, it annoys me because it's partially blocking my face. Anyways, hey, I'm your guide, Elpy, and today is the 12th of February. Dang, the 12th already. 2025, and this is mixed worm bin number 1. This bin is no longer a part of the Time for Pie series. But this bin, ooh. So I wondered before if it was just the blue worms, but nope, these are definitely European night crawlers or red wigglers. And, oh my goodness. I swear, like, those are breeding worms. Isn't it kind of gross how worm castings look like a whole bunch of mouse poop? Yeah, okay. So we are going to just cover them up. This bin is being moved towards harvest. That doesn't mean that we're harvesting anytime soon, but it means that is, like I said, we're moving towards harvest. We're thinking about harvest. The material is looking good. And I don't believe I fed last time. I know I've seen, yep, even the bin is under. It's almost like 50 degrees, Fahrenheit, which I think is like 10 degrees Celsius. But you see that the worms they're still breeding on top. But what I did several weeks ago, did I say it's been 10 days? Yeah, it's been 10 days. Is most of the material on this side is stuff that's not as broken down. So back in January, I separated out a lot of the bigger stuff to over here to start. I've decided I'm not going to do any sort of divider with these guys. I'm just going to move the bigger stuff over here. Now, the last time I was in here 10 days ago, there was tons of breeding activity, and that ultimately just made me feel like, you know what, I looked around, and I believe I looked into the feeding zone, which, how long's it been since I fed? Second, I think I fed on the 23rd. I fed a bunch of persimmons in the middle. It's either the 23rd or the 17th, and that was actually when I did all the separating. Did not feed last time. So yeah, you see there's a lot of worms in here. They're all just kind of spread out. Somebody asked me, fellow worm farmer, there's a cocoon. There's another cocoon. How many worms I think are in here, and I don't know. But I said for sure 1,000. 1,500 perhaps. Some part of me feels like to say 2,000 would be too much, but when you get to counting the worms, they add up quick. So it probably wouldn't be a stretch. Those of you who are a little bit more familiar and better at counting worms, or you professionals who can eyeball 1,000 worms, let me know how many worms do you think are in this bin. But for sure 1,000, and I'd say safely 1,500, and 2,000 might not be too far. Okay, so that looks good. The worms, like I said, are all throughout, and they are hanging out. Now, our breeders are over there, or did I just totally stir them up? Yeah, they're trying to become unbred. I'll just Sorry, guys. So I like the look of that material. I mean, the catch is that a lot of this stuff that's over here is also, well, that's not really woody. Obviously I can just break it, and that's what I need to do. But some of these are a little bit more firm. So, oh yeah, wow. Definitely. I mean, the worms are enjoying being in there, but if I want it to break down faster, I need to help it break down. That's a nice size worm. I would venture that this is a European nightcrawler, especially since you can't, if you flip it over, as I just saw a second ago, it would appear that it does have a clitellum, but it's not, and you can kind of see where it is, but it's not really evident. Say this guy here, see how obvious that is? So I would guess that that is a European nightcrawler, and it is on its way to maturity. Okay, so we're gonna dive into the feeding zone here just to see what we're looking like. I will say right now that I really wish I had gone back over the last video, because I'm pretty sure we didn't feed again. Because since I want this bin to move to harvest, feeding is not my priority. I want them to eat what's here. All right, so there's a cocoon. There's a cocoon. I thought I saw more than that. Well, but there's at least 2 cocoons on this piece of paper bag. Okay. Lots of worms, lots of worms. Slightly warmer down here. You can see a whole bunch of worms. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. When I did that feeding, I believe it was mostly persimmons. Oh yeah. I did add new shredded paper. Oh yeah, nice. This is a nice little batch here. Yep, they are very happy. So despite, normally I would see what's left of this feed. Well, okay, I shouldn't say normally. In other stages of the bin, when we aren't really in how I run my situation, when I'm not really focusing on harvest, I especially with this size bin, I would see how little food is left, and I would say, okay, these guys are for sure getting a feeding today. But then I wouldn't be as concerned with nice. I wouldn't be concerned. It's very mucky down there. With when I fed, I would only see, okay, there's not that much food left, in my opinion, based on how I run my bins. Therefore, we are, look how many babies there are, which should not come as a surprise with the amount of breeding I've been seeing. but it just makes me curious as to why all the extra breeding now. You know, I don't, when I harvest my bins, if you've not been here before or you're not aware, I just take half of the material out when I deem it ready and put in new material. And then something smells like peanut butter, kind of. Yeah, it's quite nice, actually. Sorry. So I will. It's also interesting to note that there's another cocoon. The worms breeding on top, more towards the surface than. I don't know that I find as many worms breeding deep down. But anyways, so I'll harvest out half of the bin and then I'll add new material to that half and let it sit for at least a couple of weeks. Typically the bin has always been in one condition, so when I harvest it, I'm just waiting for this new material to become inoculated with the bacteria and the microbes and all the goodness of the bin, and then I get to harvest out the other stuff. In recent times, it feels like, for one reason or another, I wind up dividing it. Like this side the castings are really wet, and I'm trying to just get some new material in there, so I push castings over. Or in the case of bin 4, I had to add a whole bunch of extra paper, so there's a lot more paper. A lot of the material I think is getting close to being ready to be done, but yet there's a lot of newer paper. So then I wind up having like a half and half sort of situation. What was my point with that? Other than to just explain to you how... That's so annoying. Oh, so I was saying about feeding. When I'm at this point... Okay, let's start over. Normally, I'm just going to look at the amount of food that's left and say, for this size population, with how I run my bins, this is nothing. We're absolutely going to feed. And I'll make note, perhaps, of when they were last fed and how fast they ate, just out of just interest. However, I do want to think a little bit more about when they're being fed when I'm thinking about harvesting, because I don't necessarily need to keep giving them a new supply of food when I really do want them to kind of spread out around the bin. So it does matter to me, and that's why I was saying, or starting to say, I kind of wish I had gone back again, because I rewatched the video to publish it, and I'm like, shoot, did I feed these guys last time? I'm certain I didn't, because unless there's food somewhere else, which I don't. I think it was another bin that I, because I know I was also really like, oh my gosh, these guys are breeding all over the place, and let me just move on. And yeah, see, it's very muddy. I'm seeing, and there's more castings over on the left side, the material. I'm soon going to need to say, sorry guys, in terms of the breeding individuals, the mass breeding, and just do what I got to do and go all through the bin, stir it up real good, and see how the material's looking, get more of the unbroken down, the more intact stuff, get more of that stuff over here. But for now, I am going to feed them a little bit. The reason I'm saying I'm just about certain, I mean, there would be 10 days later, there would be evidence. There would still be evidence of what I fed. So what I'm going to do is put, let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to put all the old stuff. Gosh, there's so many babies. Oh, that was the main reason I was telling you. So when I harvest, I don't just like take everything out. I don't, which no, hey, I'm not dogging anybody who has different methods than mine. You do you. I love seeing the different methods, and a lot of people will bait their worms and harvest the worms out and then harvest the casting. And I think that's awesome. I started doing it this way mainly because I'm impatient, and yeah, that's the main reason. So I don't clean out the whole bin. This bin has never been cleaned out since 2025. And oh my gosh, since 2020. So for 5 years, I just take the old material out, half of it, and put in new material. And so members of this population are likely pretty old. And one reason, you know, this is the case with a lot of critters in the natural world and even plants, is that breeding isn't always, and I'm not implying this about my bin, but breeding isn't always necessarily a positive sign of like, yay, everything's great. I mean, you know, we do it in the human world. Nobody, okay, I digress. So, sometimes worms might increase their breeding if conditions are unfavorable or they think they're going to die. So therefore they'll be like, I'm going to leave a whole bunch of, I'm going to reproduce. Same thing with when plants bolt. It's if say cilantro or a lot of the brassicas, when it starts to get warm, they don't really like the hotter temperatures. So they'll bolt, which means they send up a flower stalk to hurry up and reproduce and, grow those flowers that then get pollinated, that then ultimately turn into a seed pod. So worms are not so different in that. So I'm not concerned. I don't think that my worms are dying off and that's why they're breeding so heavily, but it is just an interesting fact, you know, when you look at them and you see that there are so many baby worms. You know, are they concerned? Is it, I mean, it's been cold, but maybe is it getting even colder? Or is this population, because like I said, you know, they cycle themselves out because we're just doing everything in place. Is that what you say, mise en place? So whatever the case, I do think it's pretty cool. And yeah, so yep, what we're going to do is we're going to give them a nice feeding. It is not the usual for this bin. And by that, I'm referring to the fact that this is a very large population. And normally I feed them however the heck I want to. Okay, that's right. Today I'm caring about the breeders, at least a little bit, even though I'm probably already disturbed them. So we are going to go over here. And I'm not going to add paper. We're just going to use what's already in here. So all the more reason. This is a root mass. I really didn't dig this up before, but look at these awesome looking worms. Great developed clitellums. That worm looks sickly. Yes, this worm looks very unwell. Like perhaps it has protein poisoning. Very much so. It doesn't look. So that's an interesting fact. Maybe nope, not the last time. I think the time before that I did smell ammonia. In this bin and another one. Bin 4. But really only on the surface. So perhaps that could also maybe the conditions. I've also injured this guy, maybe. No? Maybe. I'm certain it's going to die, though. That could also, maybe... Well, but would they want to breed, though, if we're dealing with protein poisoning? This guy's just really skinny. I don't see any signs of protein poisoning. But this guy's definitely unwell. Definitely. And I believe it's going to die. Okay. So, we are going to give them... Let's see, there's some paper. We'll put this root mass back down there. Some more paper. And since I'm not adding paper or any more of a carbon source than what's already here, that's all the more reason for me not to feed them a lot. Because I don't have a lot of carbon to balance the nitrogen. So, oh my goodness. Okay. Cocoon. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7. Without really even trying. There's an 8th one over there. 9, 10, 11. Very cool. Okay. But again, we can just see from the population size that there's so many babies. Okay, so yeah, like composting outside, you want to balance your carbons and your nitrogens, and your food waste are nitrogens, and your carbons are things like paper, dead leaves, cardboard, and the like. So these guys are going to get a simple food. I think I'm just going to give them greens. I've got a whole container of nearly spoiled greens. It's for the worms, but I was going to sort of save it for the night crawlers, but I think these guys should have a pretty simple, easily broken down food. I also don't want to, I'm not going to give it all to them, but okay, hold on. Okay. We've got some blackberries. Those will break down real nice. Kind of get those down in there. And then maybe that's a little bit more. Yeah. Great. So this is really simple feeding and small, even though that's a lot of greens. This is a really big population. If you've ever had a package of these greens, or heck, if you've ever dealt with greens, you know that they break down pretty quickly. So this is a good feeding for them. All right. Excellent. Okay, well, this population is really exploding. I know we saw that one individual that looked questionable. I do not smell the ammonia like I did before. I didn't happen to see anyone else. Not that I was looking closely, but I also wasn't looking closely when I saw that one. But I'm not going to be concerned. If I come in here like I did in a couple other bins early in 2024, and I discover that all I've got are babies, and I see many individuals that looked like that one, then I would be concerned. But in this case, I'm not worried about it. Awesome. Okay. So next time the mission is, I'm sure those greens are going to be broken down. It's been 10 days with this bin. I did want to leave them that long. But next time I am going to give the bin a full-on stir, and you see that a lot of the stuff down at the bottom is pretty moist, so that really needs to be stirred up and aired out. And I will go at least a week for these guys again. Those greens will be gone. The berries should be gone too, so they'll dive into that, eat that up real good. There's still some of the fruit left, and then move on to the other stuff in the bin. So and that's the other thing, is we'll move more of the undigested, the intact material that's over here, and we'll really narrow this down to more broken down and more castings. And if I discover next time that the castings are really wet, or yeah, we might be in a position to remove the bubble mailer, so as not to allow so as to let it dry up more. Anyways, I'm talking too much, but this was fun. Thanks so much for your time and your interest. Be safe, be well. Bye for now.